Maya Rodriguez had always been the type of person who dove headfirst into trends, especially when they promised to unlock secrets about herself. At 26, she worked as a marketing coordinator at a small tech startup in Austin, living paycheck to paycheck but somehow always finding money for the latest self-discovery craze. So when her best friend Jessica showed her the colorful ancestry kit she'd ordered online, Maya didn't hesitate to order her own that same evening. "It's like Christmas morning, but for your DNA," Jessica had laughed, waving the sleek package in Maya's face during their weekly coffee date. "I found out I'm 12% Scandinavian." 12%. I always wondered why I loved those Nordic crime shows so much. Maya rolled her eyes but smiled. She'd grown up with questions that had no answers, raised by her grandmother Rosa after her mother died in a car accident when Maya was just 3 years old. Rosa had been loving but secretive about the past, always changing the subject when Maya asked about her father or her mother's life before she was born. "Some stories are better left buried, Mija," Rosa would say, her weathered hands busy with cooking or cleaning, anything to avoid Maya's curious gaze. The DNA kit arrived on a Thursday, and Maya performed the simple cheek swab that evening while binge-watching her favorite romantic comedy series. She sealed the sample, dropped it in the mail the next morning, and promptly forgot about it as work consumed her attention with a major product launch. 6 weeks later, she received an email notification that her results were ready. Maya opened her laptop during her lunch break, expecting to discover she was part Irish or maybe had some unexpected Mediterranean heritage. The ethnicity breakdown was interesting but unremarkable, mostly confirming what she already suspected about her Mexican and Spanish roots. But then she scrolled down to the DNA matches section, and her sandwich dropped from her suddenly numb fingers. The top match showed a 25% DNA connection labeled as close family, parent/child. The profile belonged to someone named Alexander Chen, and when Maya clicked on his name, her heart stopped completely. The profile photo showed a distinguished man in his early 50s with kind eyes and graying temples, wearing an expensive-looking suit. But it wasn't just any man. It was Alexander Chen, the CEO and founder of Chen Industries, one of the largest tech conglomerates in the country. Maya had seen his face countless times on magazine covers, business news segments, and industry conferences. He was worth billions, known for his philanthropic efforts and innovative leadership in artificial intelligence. Forbes had named him one of the most influential people under 50 just a few years ago. And according to this DNA test, he was her father. Her hands shook as she screenshot the results and immediately called Jessica. "You need to sit down," Maya said without preamble when Jessica answered. "Actually, never mind sitting down. Are you somewhere private? Because I think I'm having a complete mental breakdown." "Maya, slow down. What happened? Did someone die?" "No, someone lived. My father lived, and he's been living as Alexander Chen, the billionaire CEO." The words tumbled out in a rush as Maya explained the DNA results, reading the percentages and match confidence levels while Jessica made increasingly dramatic gasping sounds. "This is insane," Jessica finally said. "This is like something out of a movie. Are you absolutely sure? Could there be a mistake?" Maya had wondered the same thing, spending her entire lunch break researching DNA testing accuracy and reading forums about unexpected family discoveries. The science seemed solid, the match too close to be anything other than a parent-child relationship. But the implications were staggering. If Alexander Chen was her father, that meant her mother had somehow been involved with one of the most successful businessmen in America, and Maya had been living in relative poverty while her biological father built an empire. The afternoon crawled by as Maya tried to focus on work, but her mind kept spinning through possibilities. Had her mother known? Had Alexander Chen known about her existence? Why had Rosa never mentioned anything about her daughter being involved with someone so prominent? The questions multiplied like a virus, each one spawning 3 more until Maya felt dizzy with the weight of unanswered mysteries. That evening, she sat in her small apartment with Rosa's old photo albums spread across her coffee table, searching for clues she might have missed. Her mother, Elena, had been beautiful, with the same dark eyes and thick hair that Maya had inherited. In the photos, Elena looked happy but young, probably around Maya's current age. There were pictures of Elena at what looked like college parties, graduation ceremonies, and casual gatherings with friends, but no photos of her with any men who resembled Alexander Chen. Maya pulled up Alexander Chen's Wikipedia page and began reading his biography with new eyes. He had attended Stanford University for his MBA, graduating the same year that Elena would have been finishing her undergraduate degree at UT Austin. But that seemed like a tenuous connection, hardly proof of anything. Rich, successful men didn't typically date struggling college students from Texas, did they? As she scrolled through more photos and articles about Alexander Chen, she found herself studying his features, looking for resemblances she might have missed. He had kind eyes, similar to what she saw in the mirror, and when he smiled in casual photos, there was something familiar about the way one side of his mouth lifted slightly higher than the other. Maya had always wondered where that particular quirk came from, since Rosa and Elena both had perfectly symmetrical smiles in every photo. The more she researched, the more questions arose. Alexander Chen had been married to the same woman, Patricia, for over 20 years. They had 2 children together, twins who were just a few years younger than Maya. He seemed to live an extremely public life, attending charity galas and industry events, always photographed with his elegant wife and accomplished children. There was no obvious gap in the timeline where he might have had a secret relationship with a young woman in Texas. But DNA doesn't lie, Maya reminded herself. Science doesn't care about social expectations or carefully constructed public images. Somewhere in the past, Alexander Chen and Elena Rodriguez had met, and from that meeting, Maya had been born. Whether it was a love affair, a brief encounter, or something more complicated, the genetic evidence was undeniable. Maya spent the rest of the evening crafting and deleting emails to Alexander Chen's various corporate addresses, each draft sounding more desperate or crazy than the last. How do you contact a billionaire to tell him he might be your father? What do you say in the subject line that doesn't immediately get you flagged as a scammer or mentally unstable person seeking attention? The practical challenges of making contact seemed almost as overwhelming as the emotional revelation itself. As midnight approached, Maya finally closed her laptop and lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind too wired for sleep. Tomorrow, she would have to decide what to do with this information. She could ignore it, pretend the DNA test had never happened, and continue living her quiet life with this massive secret. Or she could find a way to reach out to Alexander Chen and potentially change both of their lives forever. The choice felt impossibly heavy, like standing at the edge of a cliff with no way to see what lay at the bottom. Maya barely slept that night, and by morning she had made a decision. She couldn't ignore this revelation, but she also couldn't rush into contact without more information. If she was going to potentially disrupt the life of one of America's most powerful businessmen, she needed to be absolutely certain of her facts and prepared for any possible outcome. She called in sick to work, something she rarely did, and spent the morning creating what she jokingly called her conspiracy board on her bedroom wall. Using printouts, sticky notes, and colored string like something out of a crime drama, she began mapping out everything she knew about Alexander Chen's life alongside the limited information she had about her mother's past. The first breakthrough came when she decided to search for Elena Rodriguez in combination with Stanford University. Her mother had never mentioned anything about California or prestigious universities, but Maya remembered Rosa once mentioning that Elena had won some kind of academic scholarship that had taken her away from Texas for a while. Maya had always assumed it was for graduate school somewhere local, but what if it had been something bigger? After hours of searching through old university newsletters and academic databases, Maya found it, a small announcement in a 1997 Stanford Business School publication about their summer internship program. Elena Rodriguez from Austin, Texas, was listed among 20 students selected for an exclusive internship with various Silicon Valley companies. The program was designed to give promising students from underrepresented backgrounds exposure to the tech industry's inner workings. Maya's heart pounded as she cross-referenced this timeline with Alexander Chen's career. In 1997, he had just started Chen Industries with venture capital funding, working out of a small office in Palo Alto. The company was still in its infancy, but Chen was already being recognized as a rising star in the artificial intelligence field. It was entirely possible that Elena's internship had placed her within Chen Industries' orbit during those crucial early months. Armed with this new information, Maya decided to dig deeper into her mother's possessions, which Rosa had stored in the attic after Elena's death. Maya had only looked through these boxes once before, when she was a teenager searching for clues about her father, but Rosa had discouraged her exploration, saying it was too painful to revisit Elena's belongings. Climbing into the dusty attic of Rosa's house, where she still had a key, Maya felt like an archaeologist uncovering ancient secrets. The boxes were labeled in Rosa's careful handwriting: Elena's school things, Elena's clothes, Elena's papers. Maya started with the papers, hoping to find documentation from the Stanford internship. The first box yielded Elena's college transcripts, showing excellent grades in business and computer science courses. There were letters of recommendation from professors, scholarship award certificates, and finally, buried beneath academic paperwork, a folder labeled California Summer 1997. Maya's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were photos that made Maya's breath catch. Elena looked radiant and sophisticated, dressed in business casual attire against backdrops of Silicon Valley offices and conference rooms. But more importantly, there were photos of Elena with groups of other interns, and in several images, Maya could make out a younger version of Alexander Chen in the background, clearly recognizable despite being 25 years younger. One photo in particular made Maya's chest tighten. Elena was smiling at the camera while Alexander Chen stood slightly behind her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder in what could have been a casual professional gesture. But something about Elena's expression, a softness in her eyes and the way she seemed to be glowing with happiness, suggested this was more than a simple workplace photo. Beneath the photos were internship program materials, including a schedule of events and workshops. Maya noticed that Elena had attended every optional evening seminar and weekend networking event, far more than would be expected of a typical intern. There were also restaurant receipts and ticket stubs from various San Francisco attractions, suggesting Elena had spent considerable time exploring the area beyond her required internship duties. The most revealing discovery was a letter, written in Elena's familiar handwriting but never sent. The envelope was addressed to Alexander Chen at his Palo Alto office, but it had never been sealed or mailed. Maya's hands shook as she opened it and read her mother's words from over 25 years ago. "Dear Alex," the letter began, using an intimate nickname that suggested a close relationship. "I know this summer has been complicated, and I understand why things have to end when I go back to Texas. You have your life here, your company, your future, and I have mine back home. I don't regret anything that happened between us, and I hope someday you'll remember this time as fondly as I will. I need you to know that what we shared was real for me, even if it can't continue. I'm grateful for everything you taught me about business, about dreams, and about believing in myself. Take care of yourself, and remember that someone in Texas will always be cheering for your success." The letter was signed, "All my love, Elena," and Maya noticed tear stains on the paper that had long since dried. At the bottom, in different ink as if added later, Elena had written a single line: "I'll tell her about you someday, when she's old enough to understand." Maya sat in the dusty attic clutching the letter, tears streaming down her face as the pieces finally came together. Her mother had loved Alexander Chen, had planned to tell Maya about him eventually, but had died before that conversation could happen. And Alexander Chen had no idea that his summer romance with a young intern had resulted in a daughter. The next piece of evidence came from Elena's personal journal, which Maya found wrapped in tissue paper at the bottom of another box. The entries from summer 1997 read like a love story, documenting Elena's growing feelings for the brilliant young entrepreneur who was working 18-hour days to build his dream company. "Alex stayed at the office until midnight again, but he walked me to my car and we talked about everything except work," one entry read. "He has this way of listening that makes me feel like the most important person in the world. I know this is temporary, I know he's destined for things I can't even imagine, but when he looks at me, I forget about all the reasons this won't work." Later entries revealed the complexity of their relationship. Elena knew that Alexander was under immense pressure from investors and that his company's future hung in the balance. She also understood that their social and economic backgrounds made them unlikely long-term partners, but she couldn't help falling for his intelligence, ambition, and unexpected tenderness. The final entries from late August 1997 were heartbreaking. Elena had discovered she was pregnant just days before her internship ended, but she had decided not to tell Alexander. "He's so close to securing the funding that will make or break Chen Industries," she wrote. "I can't burden him with this now, when everything he's worked for is on the line. Maybe someday, when his company is stable and successful, I'll find a way to reach out. But for now, I need to protect both of us by keeping this secret." Maya closed the journal and sat in the silence of the attic, finally understanding the full story. Her mother had made an impossible choice, prioritizing Alexander's career and dreams over her own desire to share the news of their child. Elena had returned to Texas, raised Maya with Rose's help, and apparently never found the right moment to contact Alexander as his company grew from a startup to a global empire. Now Maya faced her own impossible choice. Should she honor her mother's decision to keep the secret, or should she finally bridge the gap that Elena had maintained for over 2 decades? After discovering her mother's journal and the unsent letter, Maya spent 3 days crafting her approach to Alexander Chen. She wrote and rewrote her message dozens of times, trying to find the perfect balance between respectful and urgent, between providing enough information to be credible without overwhelming him with details. Finally, she settled on a professional but personal email that she sent to 3 different addresses: his corporate contact, his foundation's inquiry email, and a personal address she found through careful social media investigation. The subject line read, "Regarding Elena Rodriguez, Stanford Summer Internship 1997. Dear Mr. Chen," she began, "my name is Maya Rodriguez, and I believe you knew my mother, Elena Rodriguez, during the summer of 1997 when she was an intern in Silicon Valley. I recently discovered some of her belongings that suggest you two had a meaningful connection during that time. I have some information that I believe you would want to know, and I would be grateful for the opportunity to speak with you privately. I understand this is unusual, and I'm happy to provide verification of my identity and my mother's connection to that internship program. This is not a request for money or publicity, but rather a personal matter that I believe affects both of us. I can be reached at this email or by phone at any time convenient for you." Maya hit send before she could second-guess herself again, then immediately felt nauseous with anxiety. She had just contacted one of the most powerful men in America, claiming to have information about his past. Either he would remember Elena and be curious enough to respond, or his assistants would flag her as another person seeking attention from a celebrity. To her amazement, she received a response within 6 hours. It came from a private email address, not a corporate one, and the message was brief but intriguing. "Maya, I remember your mother very well. Elena was an exceptional person who made a significant impact on my life during a crucial time. I would very much like to speak with you. Are you available for a phone call this evening? Alex." The fact that he signed with the same nickname Elena had used in her unsent letter made Maya's heart race. This wasn't a polite brush-off from an assistant. This was a personal response from someone who genuinely remembered her mother. That evening, Maya's phone rang at exactly the time Alexander had specified. His voice was warm but cautious, with the same slight accent she had noticed in interviews, a blend of his Chinese heritage and American education. "Maya," he said, "before we go any further, I want you to know that your mother was one of the most remarkable people I've ever met. She was brilliant, kind, and had a way of seeing possibilities that others missed. I've often wondered what became of her over the years." Maya felt tears welling up at hearing someone speak about Elena with such obvious affection and respect. "She died when I was 3, Maya said quietly. "Car accident. I was raised by my grandmother, and I never knew much about her time in California." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds before Alexander spoke again, his voice heavy with emotion. "I'm so sorry, Maya. Elena deserved a full, beautiful life. She was very special to me." "I know," Maya said, finding courage in his obvious sincerity. "I found her journal and some photos, and a letter she wrote to you but never sent. Mr. Chen, I need to tell you something that's going to sound impossible, but I have proof. Please, call me Alex. And Maya, given that you're Elena's daughter, I suspect I know what you're going to tell me." The admission hung in the air between them. "You know," Maya whispered. "I've wondered. Alex said carefully. Elena left very suddenly at the end of her internship, and she seemed different those last few days. Emotional, distant. I tried to contact her several times after she returned to Texas, but she never responded to my calls or letters. I assumed she had decided our connection was just a summer thing and wanted to move on with her life. She was protecting you, Maya said, and then explained about the pregnancy, about Elena's decision to keep the secret while his company was in its crucial early stages, about her plan to contact him someday when the time was right. And now you're contacting me instead, Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. Maya, are you telling me that you're my daughter? I took a DNA test, Maya said. It shows a 25% match, parent-child relationship. I can send you the results, and we can do another test if you want confirmation, but, Alex, I think I'm your daughter. The silence this time was longer, and Maya could hear Alex's shaky breathing over the phone. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Elena's daughter. My daughter. Oh God, Maya, I can't believe, all these years, I had a child and I didn't know. Elena carried that secret alone, raised you alone, and I never knew to help or support or even just be there. She didn't want to burden you, Maya said. She wrote in her journal that she was afraid telling you would derail your company when you were so close to success. She was going to tell you later, when things were more stable, but then she died, and I missed 26 years of your life, Alex finished, his voice breaking. Maya, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know how to process this. I have so many questions, so many things I want to know about you, about Elena, about the life you've lived. They talked for over 2 hours that first night, with Alex asking dozens of questions about Maya's childhood, her education, her dreams and goals. Maya was struck by how easy it was to talk to him, despite the surreal circumstances. He had Elena's gift for making her feel heard and valued, and she could understand why her mother had fallen for him. I need to see you, Alex finally said as their conversation began to wind down. I know this is complicated, and I have a family that doesn't know about you, but Maya, I need to meet my daughter properly. Can you come to San Francisco? I'll arrange everything, flights, hotel, whatever you need. Are you sure? Maya asked. I don't want to disrupt your life. I know you have a wife and children, and this could cause problems for your family. Maya, you are my family, Alex said firmly. You're my daughter, and I've already missed too much of your life. We'll figure out the complications as we go, but right now, I need to meet you and start making up for lost time. They arranged to meet the following weekend at a private dining room in a San Francisco hotel. Alex would fly Maya out first class, put her up in a suite, and they would have 2 full days to get to know each other without interruptions or public attention. As Maya hung up the phone, she felt simultaneously elated and terrified. She was about to meet her father, the man whose absence had shaped her entire life. But she was also about to enter the world of one of America's most powerful families, and she had no idea how his wife and children would react to learning about her existence. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation and anxiety. Maya bought new clothes, researched Alexander's family, and tried to imagine what it would be like to finally have the father she had dreamed about her entire life. Maya's hands shook as the elevator climbed to the penthouse level of the St. Regis San Francisco. She had changed outfits 3 times that morning, finally settling on a simple black dress that seemed appropriate for meeting the father she'd never known. The elevator doors opened to reveal an elegant hallway with only 2 doors, and Maya walked slowly toward the one marked, private dining room, her heart hammering against her ribs. She raised her hand to knock, but the door opened before she could touch it. Alexander Chen stood there, and Maya was struck by how much smaller he seemed in person than in his magazine photos, though his presence was no less commanding. He was impeccably dressed in casual slacks and a button-down shirt, but his eyes were red-rimmed as if he hadn't slept, and his usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Maya could see herself in his features now that they were face to face. The shape of his eyes, the way his mouth curved, even the way he held his shoulders. 26 years of wondering what her father looked like, and now she was looking at an older, male version of herself. Maya, Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. My God, you look just like her. You have Elena's smile. And your eyes, Maya replied, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. They moved into the dining room, which had been set for an intimate lunch with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the San Francisco Bay. But neither of them seemed interested in food as they sat across from each other, still processing the reality of finally meeting. I brought something for you, Maya said, reaching into her purse and pulling out Elena's unsent letter. I thought you should have this. Alex took the envelope with reverent care, his hands trembling slightly as he opened it and read Elena's words from 26 years ago. Maya watched his face transform as he absorbed her mother's message, seeing grief, love, and regret play across his features. She was going to tell me, he said finally, folding the letter carefully and holding it against his chest. She was going to tell me about you. She loved you, Maya said. That comes through in every journal entry, every photo. But she also respected your dreams and didn't want to derail them with an unplanned pregnancy. I would have chosen you both, Alex said immediately. If I had known, I would have found a way to make it work. Elena, you, a family. That would have been worth more than any business success. Maya felt tears burning her eyes. But you have a family now. Patricia, your twins. How do they fit into this? Alex was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the bay. I've been married to Patricia for 22 years, he said finally. We have a good partnership, a stable life, 2 wonderful children. But Maya, I need you to understand something. What Elena and I had that summer was the most real, most intense connection I've ever experienced. I was 27, working 18-hour days, convinced that my company was either going to revolutionize technology or bankrupt me completely. Elena saw through all of that to who I really was underneath. And now? Maya asked. Now I'm successful beyond my wildest dreams from that summer, but I've spent decades wondering what happened to the one person who truly understood me before any of the success mattered. And it turns out she was raising our daughter alone while I built an empire. They spent the afternoon sharing stories. Alex told Maya about his immigrant parents, his struggles to get Chen Industries off the ground, his philosophy of business and philanthropy. Maya told him about growing up with Rosa, about her education and career struggles, about the questions that had haunted her entire life about her father's identity. You're so much like Elena, Alex marveled during a pause in their conversation. Not just physically, but the way you think, the way you approach problems. She had this analytical mind combined with deep empathy, and I see that same combination in you. What happens now? Maya asked the question that had been weighing on her mind since their first phone call. Alex reached across the table and took her hand, the first physical contact they'd had. Now we get to know each other, he said. I know this situation is complicated, and I know my family situation makes it even more complex, but Maya, you're my daughter. I want you in my life. What about Patricia and the twins? Alex sighed deeply. I haven't told them yet. I needed to meet you first, to confirm what we both suspected, to figure out how to handle this sensitively. But they're going to have to know. You exist, you're my child, and that's not something I can or want to hide. I don't want to destroy your marriage, Maya said quietly. Patricia and we've grown apart over the years, Alex admitted. We stay together for the children, for stability, for the public image that's expected of someone in my position. But Maya, Patricia will understand. She's a practical woman, and she'll recognize that this situation predates our marriage and involves a child who needs her father. They talked about practical matters too. Alex wanted to provide for Maya financially, to help her with student loans and living expenses, to give her opportunities she'd never had access to. But Maya was hesitant about accepting money, worried about feeling bought or controlled. It's not about control, Alex assured her. It's about 26 years of birthday presents I never got to give you, college tuition I should have helped with, the life you should have had as my daughter. Let me catch up, Maya. Let me help you build the future you deserve. As the day wore on, Maya found herself relaxing into the relationship. Alex was easy to talk to, genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions, and clearly hungry for every detail about her life. She could see why Elena had fallen for him, and why he had become so successful. He had a way of making people feel valued and heard that was both natural and magnetic. "I have something else to show you," Alex said as their conversation began to wind down. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a photo of two young people, clearly the twins Maya had read about. David and Sarah. They're 24, just finished graduate school. David's in technology like me, Sarah's in international relations. They're going to be shocked, but I think they'll be excited to have a sister. Maya studied the photo, seeing genetic similarities in their facial structure and expressions. "They look happy," she said. "They are. We've given them every advantage, every opportunity. But Maya, I want you to know that finding out about you doesn't diminish how I feel about them. It just means my heart has to expand to include another child I should have been loving all along." As their first meeting came to an end, Alex walked Maya to the elevator. "This isn't goodbye," he said firmly. "I want to see you again soon, and I want you to meet Patricia and the twins when you're ready. We're going to figure out how to be a family, all of us together." Maya hugged him, feeling the strange sensation of embracing her father for the first time at age 26. He held her tightly, and she could feel him crying against her hair. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there," he whispered. "I'm so sorry Elena had to do this alone. But I'm here now, and I'm never letting you go again." 3 months after that first meeting in San Francisco, Maya stood in the living room of Alexander Chen's Palo Alto mansion, watching her half-siblings David and Sarah help their mother Patricia arrange flowers for what the family was calling their expansion celebration. The initial revelation about Maya's existence had indeed sent shockwaves through the Chen household, but the aftermath had been surprisingly positive. Patricia Chen had surprised everyone, including Alex, with her gracious acceptance of the situation. "Alexander," she had said after he'd nervously explained everything, "we both know our marriage has been more of a partnership than a romance for years. The fact that you had a meaningful relationship before we met, and that relationship resulted in a child, doesn't threaten me. It just means our family is bigger than we thought." Maya had been terrified to meet Patricia, expecting anger or resentment, but instead found herself face to face with an elegant, intelligent woman who seemed genuinely curious about her husband's newfound daughter. "I can see Elena in you," Patricia had said during their first meeting, studying Maya with the same analytical gaze that had made her a successful investment banker before she transitioned to managing the family's philanthropic foundation. "Alex has told me so much about her over the years. I always wondered why he kept that internship program running long after Chen Industries outgrew the need for it." The twins had been initially shocked, then fascinated, then ultimately welcoming. David, who had inherited his father's logical approach to life, had immediately started asking practical questions about genetics and family medical history. Sarah, more emotionally intuitive, had simply hugged Maya and said, "I always wanted a sister, and now I have one who's already house-trained." Maya's integration into the Chen family had been gradual but steady. Alex had insisted on weekly dinners, then weekend visits, then had simply started including her in all major family events as if she had always been there. He'd also quietly paid off her student loans, upgraded her apartment, and offered her a position at Chen Industries' corporate development division that perfectly matched her skills and interests. "I'm not trying to buy your affection," he had assured her when she'd initially resisted his financial help. "I'm trying to give you the security and opportunities you should have had from the beginning. Let me be your father in all the ways I should have been for the past 26 years. The career opportunity had been particularly meaningful. Maya discovered that she had inherited not just Alex's analytical mind, but also his intuitive understanding of technology trends and market dynamics. Within her first month at Chen Industries, she had identified 3 potential acquisition targets that the company's senior analysts had overlooked, earning respect from colleagues who initially assumed she was there purely because of nepotism. "You have Elena's gift for seeing patterns that others miss," Alex told her during one of their regular father-daughter lunch meetings. "But you also have a strategic thinking ability that's going to serve you well in this industry. I think Elena would be proud of the businesswoman you're becoming." Maya had also connected with Alex's extended family, meeting aunts, uncles, and cousins who welcomed her with the same warmth they showed David and Sarah. Alex's parents, now in their 80s, had been particularly moved by Maya's existence, seeing in her a connection to their son's earlier, more vulnerable years. "You look like Alex did when he was young and still uncertain about his place in the world," his mother had told Maya in Mandarin, which Maya was now learning as part of embracing her newly discovered heritage. "Having you in his life has brought back something we thought success had taken away from him." Maya had also begun the process of learning about Elena's family history through Alex's memories and the connections he had maintained with some of her mother's former classmates. Through social media and careful investigation, Alex had tracked down several people who had known Elena during her Stanford internship, and their stories painted a picture of a brilliant, ambitious young woman who had made a lasting impression on everyone she met. "Your mother was going to change the world," one of Elena's former classmates told Maya during a video call that Alex had arranged. "She had ideas about technology and social impact that were years ahead of their time. When she left California so suddenly, we all assumed she'd gotten an amazing opportunity back in Texas. We had no idea she was dealing with being pregnant and making the impossible choice to protect Alex's career." The most emotional moment had come when Alex had taken Maya to visit Elena's grave in Austin, bringing flowers and spending an afternoon telling Elena's headstone about their daughter's life and accomplishments. Maya had watched this powerful, composed man break down completely as he apologized to Elena for not being there, for not knowing, for missing so many years of Maya's life that Elena had faced alone. "I would have married her," he had said through his tears. "If I had known about the pregnancy, about you, I would have proposed immediately. We would have found a way to make it work, to build the company and raise you together. Elena didn't need to sacrifice her happiness for my success." Maya had also begun dating someone new, a fellow tech professional she'd met through Chen Industries' social events. Marcus was kind, ambitious, and refreshingly uncomplicated after the emotional intensity of discovering her father's identity. More importantly, he understood the unique pressures that came with being part of a high-profile family while still maintaining her own identity and goals. "It's surreal sometimes," Maya confided to Jessica during one of their coffee dates, which had become even more regular as Maya processed her new reality. 6 months ago, I was struggling to pay rent and wondering if I'd ever have a real career. Now I'm part of one of America's most prominent families, working at a Fortune 500 company, and learning that I inherited business instincts I never knew I had." "But, are you happy?" Jessica asked, cutting straight to the heart of things as only best friends can. Maya considered the question seriously. "I'm grateful," she said finally. "I'm excited about the future in ways I never was before. I have a father who genuinely wants to know me, siblings who've welcomed me, and career opportunities one could never have imagined. But Jessica, I also feel this weight of responsibility now. I'm not just Maya Rodriguez anymore. I'm Maya Rodriguez-Chen, and that comes with expectations and public attention that I'm still learning to navigate." The media attention had been inevitable once Maya's relationship to Alexander Chen became public knowledge. Alex had handled the revelation carefully, working with his public relations team to frame the story as a heartwarming tale of family reunion rather than a scandal. The narrative that emerged focused on Elena's sacrifice, Alex's joy at discovering his daughter, and the family's gracious acceptance of their expanded circle. "Billionaire CEO discovers daughter he never knew existed" had been a trending topic for weeks, with most coverage painting Maya in a sympathetic light as the hard-working young woman who had grown up without knowing her father's identity. Alex had been protective of her privacy, refusing interviews that focused too heavily on Maya and insisting that any family photos exclude her until she was comfortable with public attention. Maya had been surprised by how naturally she'd adapted to the social expectations of being part of the Chen family. The charity galas, business dinners, and cultural events that had once seemed impossibly glamorous now felt like natural extensions of her relationship with Alex. She discovered that she had inherited Elena's social grace along with Alex's business acumen, making her a natural at the networking and relationship building that were crucial to success in their world. "You have a gift for making people feel comfortable," Patricia had observed after Maya had charmed a particularly difficult potential business partner at a recent dinner party. "That's not something that can be taught." It comes from having genuine empathy and interest in others, which you clearly inherited from both sides of your family. The relationship with Alex continued to deepen with each passing week. They had established rituals, weekly lunch meetings where they discussed business and family, weekend hiking trips where they could talk without the pressures of corporate life, and quiet evenings where Alex would share stories about his own childhood and Maya would tell him about growing up with Rosa. "I keep thinking about all the moments I missed," Alex said during one of their evening conversations. "Your first day of school, teaching you to drive, helping you with college applications. I know I can't get those back, but Maya, I want to be present for everything going forward. I want to walk you down the aisle someday, meet my grandchildren, be the father I should have been from the beginning." Maya had also begun exploring her Chinese heritage through Alex's family, learning about traditions and cultural values that explained aspects of her personality she'd never fully understood. She discovered that her methodical approach to problem-solving and her deep respect for education and hard work reflected values that Alex's parents had instilled in him, values that had apparently been passed down to her despite the genetic distance. "You are very Chinese in your thinking," Alex's mother had told her with approval during a recent family dinner. "Patient, strategic, always considering the long-term consequences of your actions. Elena must have seen these qualities in Alex and nurtured them in you, even without knowing their cultural origins." The professional relationship with Alex had also evolved beyond Maya's initial position at Chen Industries. She had proven herself capable of independent thinking and innovative problem-solving, leading Alex to include her in strategic planning sessions typically reserved for senior executives. Maya found herself contributing ideas about market expansion and technology development that impressed even seasoned colleagues who had initially been skeptical of her rapid advancement. "Maya has a perspective that none of us can replicate," Alex had told his executive team during a recent strategy meeting. "She understands both the startup mentality and the corporate structure, both the American market and emerging global trends. She's not here because she's my daughter, she's succeeding because she's exceptionally talented." As Maya stood in the Chen family's living room, watching Patricia arrange flowers while David and Sarah debated the playlist for their celebration, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed. The DNA test that she'd taken on a whim had revealed not just her father's identity, but had connected her to a family, a heritage, and a future that exceeded anything she had ever imagined possible. Alex appeared beside her, following her gaze around the room full of people who had become her family. "No regrets?" he asked quietly, echoing a conversation they'd had during one of their first meetings. Maya smiled, thinking of Elena's journal entries about believing in possibilities that others couldn't see. "No regrets," she said firmly. "Just gratitude for second chances and the courage to take a DNA test that changed everything." "Elena would be so proud of you," Alex said, putting his arm around Maya's shoulders. "She would be proud of the woman you've become, proud of how gracefully you've handled all of this, and proud that her sacrifice ultimately led to something beautiful." As the celebration began around them, with Patricia raising a toast to expanded families and unexpected blessings, Maya felt the last piece of her lifelong puzzle click into place. She had spent 26 years wondering about her father, and now she not only knew who he was but had gained an entire family who loved and supported her unconditionally. The future stretched ahead full of possibilities that Elena could never have imagined when she made her difficult choice in 1997. Maya would continue building her career at Chen Industries, exploring her relationship with Marcus, and deepening her connections with the Chen family. But most importantly, she would carry forward Elena's legacy of courage, sacrifice, and the belief that love could transcend any obstacle. "To Elena," Alex said quietly, raising his glass in a private toast that only Maya could hear. "For giving us the greatest gift of all." "To Elena," Maya whispered back, "and to the DNA test that finally brought us home."